Let's say there are 100 people at your school that play sports, in particular baseball, basketball, and football. If you have that data broken down into who plays each of those sports and whether they are male or female, you can create a two-way frequency table like the one on the left. It's called a two-way frequency table because you're comparing two variables. So my columns represent what sports they play, and my rows represent whether they are male or female. So this right here is a two-way frequency table. And sometimes people add the totals, so the total of all the males, the total of all the females, and then the total for each of the sports. Now you can use that two-way frequency table to create a relative frequency table. And what that is saying how many people, you're taking that number and you are presenting it relative to the total. So in this case, there are 100 total players. So the relative frequency table for baseball and male would say 13 out of 100. And you can change that number to a decimal or a percent. I'm just going to use the fraction form. Now let's go through these questions calculating the frequencies using this data. So the first question says, what percentage of basketball players from the total players are female? Now, that sounds a little confusing for me, so in my head, I might reword this question. So it says from the total players. So it's saying out of the total players, how many are basketball players that are female? So from the total players means that is going to be my denominator. So there's 100 total players. And how many of those are female basketball players? So it would be 16 out of 100. Now let's try the next one. They're using the term relative frequency. That means relative to this, like out of this. So this says, what is the relative frequency of baseball from the total players that are male? So again, from the total players. So this is very similar to the first one, but they're throwing in that term relative frequency. What that is saying is out of the total players, so that's our denominator, how many baseball players are male? How many are baseball players that are male? So out of the total, how many are baseball and male? Now let's talk about conditional frequency. So conditional frequency, what is the conditional frequency of football players that are female? So the way I would reword this in my head, it's giving us a condition. Say, okay, given this condition that you are a football player, so we just care about the football player. So given that you're one of these football players, what is the probability that you are a female? So out of the 33 football players, female is 13. That's the conditional frequency of football players being female. Now let's talk about marginal frequency. When I think of marginal frequency, I think of the margins. So we are referring to the margins of our tables. We're referring to these totals. That's always going to be one of our denominator. So this says, what is the marginal frequency of the total number of players that are female? So this is saying of the total number of players, so that means of the 100, how many are female? 52. So it would be 52 out of 100. And then the last one says, what is the joint frequency? So what is the joint frequency of the basketball players that are male? So joint means more than one thing is happening. So it's saying they are a male and they are a basketball player. So it's saying out of all of the players, so out of those 100 players, how many are jointly, are they both basketball and male? Basketball and male is 15. So 15 out of 100 is the joint frequency.